Hey, I'm Dr. Duke, and I'm joined today by Alex Newman. Alex is our international correspondent. And Alex, a really big story in the news, which to the surprise of nobody, I suppose, little kids, elementary school kids, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, being hounded with global warming, doom and gloom, apocalyptic language, are coming home traumatized. They're having to go to therapists. They believe that they're going to be dead soon, all for promoting liberal politics. Talk about the story, please.
Yeah, it really is a tragedy. Actually, I was packing my suitcases, getting ready to head for Madrid, where the UN was hosting its annual climate clown show. This was the 25th conference of the parties, COP25, and I got an email from a very concerned mother in Canada. She said, "Hey, my daughter came home from school, and she said all the kids were shrieking about we're all going to die in 8 years because of global warming, and it's all our parents' fault, all this kind of crazy stuff." So I told her, "Thank you for the tip. I'm going to do an article about that." Well, in the meantime, some other media outlets picked it up. It became kind of an international scandal. One of the biggest newspapers in Canada picked it up. But this is what's happening all over the Western world. These are the tactics of cults and dictators. They are terrorizing these little children, and they are using it to advance a very nefarious, in fact, a totalitarian political agenda.
I agree. And I remember when, was it 12 years ago now, 15 years ago? I got to keep track of time. When Al Gore's Inconvenient Lie came out, his Inconvenient Truth, and they were actually funneling that into kindergarten classrooms. They were showing kids as young as 5 and 6 and 7 an Inconvenient Truth. These kids were then going home terrified that polar bears were drowning, that we're all going to be dead in years. It really is. You use the word cult. This is cultic, isn't it? You are, on the one hand, you're treating children like adults with sexuality, right? You're breaking down modesty and innocence. You're unmaking childhood. You are forcing adult sexual content in children's minds. On the other hand, now, you're hammering them on the other side by telling them that you're all going to be dead soon anyway, that your parents, your country, your world has destroyed your future. What's the psychology behind this? And are there other people speaking out against it that you know of?
Oh yeah, actually in Spain, one of the top experts in the world, Dr. William Happer, he's a physics professor out of Princeton, and he actually was Donald Trump's climate advisor for 2 years. We've had the opportunity to interview him. He and I have spoken at a climate conference. Great guy. He came to Madrid, and he said these people are actually behaving as a bizarre environmental cult, is the term he used, because what they're doing here is completely devoid of any evidence. They've concocted this new religion, and the religion is, hey, you're a sinner because you have a carbon footprint. You've sinned against Mother Earth, and now you need to repent by paying a carbon tax to the United Nations and reducing your carbon footprint. If anybody disagrees with your weird theology, then you need to cut them out of your life. They're climate criminals. They're climate deniers. I mean, this is exactly the kind of stuff that cults do to their victims to get them wrapped up in these crazy movements. It also has very troubling parallels with dictatorships, by the way. And I think we have a clip of some German children that I think really shows this. Maybe we can roll that real quick, and then we'll pick up on the other side.
Meine Oma fährt im SUV beim Arzt. Überfährt dabei zwei Opis mit Rollator. Meine Oma ist eine alte Umweltsau.
So what you saw there was a clip of young German elementary, maybe early middle school kids who were assembling in their public schools, and they were singing a bouncy song about how my grandma is an environmental pig, right? And what staggers me about that video, the lyric to that video, is what they're basically saying is, it's not that grandma is using her SUV to go joyriding and burning up the environment. Grandma was actually in the song on the way to see the doctor. Maybe grandma had a hernia. Maybe grandma was suffering pain, or she's having terrible symptoms. Grandma getting into her car and driving to the doctor now makes her a pig. Young kids talking about their grandmothers as if they were pigs for driving cars.
Yeah, and again, this is the tactics that dictatorships use, Duke. Healthy civilizations, young people are taught to have respect for their elders. Hey, it's your elders who built this society that you're benefiting from. It's they who invented the machines that you use to make your life easier. It's them who gave you life, for crying out loud. Healthy societies have a healthy respect and a reverence for their elders. But what we've seen in dictatorships all throughout the 20th century is a very calculated effort to drive a wedge between the children and their parents and their grandparents. Hitler was a master of this. He actually criminalized homeschooling, first world leader ever in human history to make parents criminals for trying to educate their own children. Mao was really a master of this, right? Taught the children that maybe their parents might be secret counter-revolutionaries, and so you need to spy on them. And then the children would literally report their parents to authorities for being counter-revolutionary. Their parents would get dragged out of the house, and if they're lucky, maybe they would be tortured. If they were unlucky, they would get a bullet in the back of their head. These are very, very dangerous things. This is frightening, it's insane, and it's happening all over the Western world in that, children are being brainwashed, they're being terrorized, they're being used as props like this Greta Thunberg, and they are being weaponized against our liberty, against our nations, against their families, against our churches. This ends in disaster if we don't put a stop to it.
Well, and the one thing we should probably close with is the idea on top of all of that, the brainwashing, the indoctrination, the false information, the misuse of education for radically politicized purposes. The one thing we really should point out is the absolute trauma that's being inflicted on these kids. These kids are being absolutely traumatized. Little kids, 5 and 6 and 7, being told that they may not be boys even though they have boy parts. Way too young to comprehend what that means. Kids in terror that they might wake up. We've had documented incidences of this where little boys going to bed terrified that they're going to wake up girls in the morning. And now you're placing the entire burden. I remember back when I was a middle schooler and we still had to worry about the hydrogen bomb, right? You do the duck and cover under your desk drills. That was a lot of psychic baggage for kids who were 13 and 14 years old, let alone what they're doing here to kids in elementary school.
Yeah, it really is sick, Duke. As far as I'm concerned, this is an enormous abuse of power. This is abuse of children to advance very nefarious objectives. And the school in Canada got caught in a bunch of lies after this all came out. They said, oh, it didn't really happen. Oh, it did. Okay, kind of happened. But we were just trying to be helpful. We just were doing it for their own good, so they would think about ways to solve the climate crisis. I mean, this is all garbage. And being at this UN climate conference, the constant refrain was, hey, we know it looks dark now. Trump is in the White House and he says this is all a Chinese hoax. But don't worry, we have all the kids, right? Al Gore sounded like the Pied Piper. Oh, all your children are marching in our climate marches. I mean, they know, this is just a game of waiting now. They've got the great majority of humanity's children locked in these institutions called government schools, being bombarded with a steady diet of global warming alarmism, of anti-family, anti-freedom, anti-faith propaganda. And this is a very real risk, not just to our own country, but to all of civilization and to really all the values that underpin civilization. It's very dangerous.
Well, the disturbed child known as Saint Greta Thunberg has revealed her true cards as well, right? She's now no longer really talking about warming, and she's no longer really talking about fighting climate. She's come out and said all the liberal talking points, right? That really what we have to do is we have to end capitalism, we have to end patriarchy, we have to end colonialism. She's gone from being a frightened little teen quivering before the United Nations and wagging her finger to she sounds exactly like what you would expect from a environmentalist gender studies professor at a second-rate university. Alex, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate the article.
Thank you so much, Duke.